Mr. Casa, how's it going?
Going great.
I You have a Texas State like illuminated light behind you. I think we're gonna get to that topic in a minute, but I think you're like 15 miles away from me right now. We're both in Dallas area, but not together in the same room.
Not together in the same room. We're here for a very, very special occasion that we're excited about, um, and looking forward to telling you a little bit about it.
Nice. All right. So, Anthony, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you. God, it's probably been like five or 6 years now, and like seen you in a few different capacities through Brawl and AIM, and then most recently over the last 2 years, the launch of UMortgage. Give us a glimpse into the founding story. Then we can kind of take it from there on like UMortgage strategy and the business that you're building.
Yeah. Well, obviously, before I was here, I was focused on the independent mortgage broker channel. I think, for me, when I was starting UMortgage, the focus was like, broker's great because for so many reasons, but one of the reasons that it's not the best model, why a lot of retail LOs don't go to the broker model, is it's not very scalable. And it's not, like a guy like Champagne, who I saw you just did an article on, which was great, by the way.
Yeah, $1 billion in volume in 2022. Mercy, man.
Mercy. And the previous year, he did $2 billion. So like, he can't go to the broker channel because of the fact that, he's got 50 team members that work for him. Like, he needs something. He needs a little bit more of a platform that he can plug his business into. And that's why retail works for him. And what we're trying to do is be the difference between broker and retail. So we don't have all of the layers that maybe a retail has, but we have all the infrastructure that would allow an LO to scale their business without kind of doing it yourself type of model.
So how is that goal of building a origination shop that gives people more scale than the wholesale model that you spent the previous 5 years in versus the retail model that we've seen proliferate over the last decade? The retail IMB has just proliferated in comparison to the depository world and other parts of the mortgage industry. Like, how did those two inputs influence the structure and culture that you sought to build?
Yeah, well, the reason why we did the whole brokers are better movement at AIM was because retail's so expensive. Like, the rates are so much higher than a broker can deliver. And so to me, I love the fact that the cheapest place for a consumer to get a loan is in the wholesale channel. That's, you hear Matt Ishby and UWM always talk about that. But the reality is it's only 18% of the market. So like 82% of the consumers are going elsewhere. So, for all intents and purposes, I sat there and I said, hey, the real opportunity here is if you can provide access to a marketplace of lenders, but you normalize the experience so that, the LO can still have their operations. They can still, do everything they want to do in their local communities, but, they get an access to UWM and EPM and Home Point, all these different wholesale lenders. So I guess, for us, it was like, but how do we not become retail was the big question. Like, how do you not just become another version of that? And we just made a business decision that we're not going to have middle management and overrides and some of that stuff so that we, basically build it on a community like we did AIM.
So, I mean, is that the big delta? So, like, all right, so we saw the Q3 MBA IMB report showed that the cost of origination was about $11,000, the highest it's ever been in history of the report, which for most lenders meant that they were not profitable. We did a webinar today. I had Garth Graham from Stratmore as a speaker, and he shared that 60 to 70% of IMBs are not running at a profit right now, which only means 30% are, which is not a positive metric. But when you start to compare the models, you have similar cost of capital. You have wholesale lenders who have found the same scale that the big IMB shops have, or if not more in certain scenarios. You're going to have the ability to build similar technology stacks at similar tech cost structures. So like the big delta is the human capital component of the origination cost. So is the big difference between, what we have over here in retail and what you have over here in wholesale, or the traditional broker ecosystem where there's no kind of middle management, and which could also be like glimpsed at. There's no like less leadership and like sales coaching. Like, you're trying to build something in the middle there where you have a little more infrastructure, but you don't have the legacy.
Yes. Here's what I would say is this is like, the separation, the difference between the LO and the money. So like whether it's UWM or Fairway, everything between the LO and the end user is in the margin, is in the rate the consumer is getting. So for me, it's like, okay, we're going to provide all the operations, but none of the sales leadership. So there's a cost here. But like, you have your coaching platforms like Next Level Coaching, you have the core, like I feel like they can get that in different ways. And I think from a company-wide leadership perspective, we can lead and help, give them the leadership that they need. But I don't need a branch manager that's getting, 75 basis point override. I don't need a market leader that's getting 30 basis points. Like if you were to actually break down that $11,000 in cost and take out the LO comp and take out the operation and business cost, you're going to find sales leadership plays a big role in that financial structure.
So when you look back in like the legacy of IMBs, like I'm imagining there's like a few players who started out with a similar strategy and said like, hey, I'm going to be like lean and mean. But over time, inertia happens, scale happens. Like, how do you ensure that your culture won't turn into one as you scale and like recruit new teams to join the UMortgage platform? I believe you've been using the powered by language as a core of the brand. How do you prevent like an infrastructure building just over time, as like people stack up in the organization and you start to resemble who you're trying to compete with?
So there's two things that have to happen. The first thing is Rocket and UWM gave us the playbook, which is centralized, controlled operations. The retail model is like this every branch does it themselves. In our model, we own it. We don't allow for customization, which is a big deal because that allows us to make sure that from a financial perspective, you don't have, the LO who's not an HR person, who's not a talent acquisition person determining what the salary of the processor is. So that's where there's a lot of dysfunction in the retail model. So controlling your operations is number one. Number two is we've put in our environment, is like, this is like kind of a unique situation, is we've allowed for all of our LOs and branch leaders to buy into the company. So right now in the last quarter, essentially we had 22 different LOs and branch leaders contribute $3 million. So the average amount of the individual investment was $200,000. So, when you have alignment, think about this, Clayton, this, consumer, LO, company. The issue is when the LO doesn't care about the profitability of the company, they want blend and they want all these different things, marketing, all this stuff. The minute they're an owner and their shareholder value, they're looking at that, they're sitting there saying, whoa. We can have more costs. We do need scalable operations. And by the way, every single time we say yes to something, our costs go up, which decreases the revenue, which is my distribution as an equity owner, and our value goes down. So my goal is to make this a 99% team member, LO, branch leader owned company and have that alignment. Like I don't care about being, the 99% owner. I care about having the company that there's true alignment from the consumer to the LO to the actual platform.
Yeah, I mean, the employee owned is powerful. You just got to make sure you maintain the ability to keep it centralized and don't turn into like a co-op of divergent views.
Yes, well, that's kind of that's the one thing is like in this model, I've said, hey, listen, guys, I'm going to sell you the ability to get the distributions and all that stuff, but I'm Roger Goodell, okay? I'm the CEO, so I got full 100%. I have 100% decision making ability. Roger Goodell, he makes a lot of money being the CEO of the NFL, okay? And the owners don't get to tell him what to do. He's running that league. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the way I've taken this approach. Is like, guys, if you believe in me, if you think I'm going to return your shareholder value quarter over quarter and give you the outcomes that you want, then great. You can be an investor or sell your shares back to me. I'll guarantee that I'll buy it back. But I'm in control of the business.
Yeah, so I'd say from like the employee ownership perspective, now is either like got to be the best time or the worst time to be putting equity into a mortgage origination shop. I think in this scenario where you have originators and leaders joining you, they're obviously bullish in the vision. They bought in. If they're going to come join UMortgage, there's like a selection bias of like, hey, I'm hanging up my hat as a owning my own shop or running my own brokerage or being a team leader at a retail shop to come join you. I'm imagining the equity conversation is not that difficult.
Well, so we have 2 branches coming on this week. Both branch leaders and their LOs cumulatively are going to stroke checks for $500,000 each upon coming on to buy into the company. So think about this. You have all these companies, there's been all these recruiting wars where people are giving out crazy signing bonuses to get people, retention bonuses, okay? In my world, they're stroking me a check to be an owner in the company. So I'm going to make more money off them. They're investing in the company. They're putting more money into the bucket right away. And we would make off them in years, but they're believing in the fact that, hey, we're building a platform to replace all the other dysfunctional platforms. It's fully transparent. I treat everybody like they're a shareholder. So we do public, like investor calls every quarter where I present our financials to them. I present very publicly our books. Everybody can see our books. When you are that transparent in business, the level of accountability is through the freaking roof. And that's why we've grown quarter over quarter, 100% the last 2 quarters in a row. And we're, very much planning on doing that another quarter, this upcoming quarter.
So as current or future team members buy into the organization, how are you, or purchase equity in the organization, how do you deploy that capital? Like, what is your, what's the deployment strategy or business need to keep scaling? And how does that new equity sale, that I guess it's primary capital, impact your growth trajectory?
Yeah, so it's very important for me. I mean, think about this environment from a cash flow perspective. If we're adding 100 LOs in this next week, so think about computers, health insurance, like all the things that go into that cost. If I don't have this capital coming in, I won't be able to keep up with that cash flow machine. So that's one. Two, the other thing is that we're doing is, we're expanding our operations team. We're expanding our warehouse capacities. Like, we need that capital to meet our covenances. And really, the last one is the most important one. Is we're making acquisitions too. Like, right now there are opportunities in the market to acquire companies. We don't want to buy dysfunctional companies, but there are some amazing entrepreneurs out there that make sense for our model.
Yeah. Excuse the background noise. As I told you, we're in a new office in downtown Dallas, which means I get some of the downtown Dallas street noise out here. We used to make fun of our guests from New York City who always have a siren in the background. And I'm kind of like that down here in downtown. So Anthony, I get the vision on how the capital comes in. On the M&A side, if you are selling primary capital to team members, does that create, do you see in acquisitions, see a significant portion of rolled equity into the organization? So they're coming in with ownership through the deal?
Well, for true acquisition, yes, that's important for me. I don't want to acquire a company where there's not alignment with the people coming in, that they want to be owners. So, that's really a critical piece for me. That's been the deal breaker for a couple deals. The ones that we're working on right now actively, we had full alignment, and that was, a condition of it. Hey, you're coming here and you're going to help us make this a multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah, no, I mean,
I banker by background with a acquisitive past. So I get the times when full liquidity works and the time where rolled equity is necessary. And when you're having someone join you and kind of the capacity that you're recruiting for, that makes a lot of sense. So
the one claim is this, is we basically put in everybody's contract, we will guarantee to buy back the stock at our current valuation with 6 months notice. And the reason why that's important is if we're not a publicly traded company, how do you exit? To me, it's hey, if our valuation is doubles or triples and somebody wants to cash out, it's I'll guarantee to buy back because I'm confident we're going to continue to raise that value. But the other thing is this, is you sell equity when you need cash, you buy equity when you have cash. So we see it with Warren Buffett. He's constantly buying back stock that he owns in Berkshire Hathaway. So I think it's just do I want to be partners with venture capital, or do I want to be partners with my loan officers and branch leaders?
Yeah. No, capital allocation is the name of the game. If you haven't read The Outsiders by Will Thorndike, I recommend it. It's probably the best book on profiles of 5 savvy capital allocators over a 30-year period. It's phenomenal, the value creation that can be had when you're willing to sell at the right price and willing to buy back when the price is appropriate, and use debt and equity to fund really strategic vision. So I'm with you there. So Anthony, you're kind of a household name in the mortgage industry. You've been relatively prolific in your communication through your capacity at Brawl and AIM, but also in your capacity at UMortgage. And you talked about the transparency. You're literally hosting company-wide calls, but inviting everybody. So tell me about the origins of your communication strategy, and kind of what you've learned over the years. Because I mean, you've made noise, and sometimes that's been by like calling certain players into luring them into conversation on social media, being vocal in webinars in the media. Like I'm just curious in how you think about comm strategy and how it relates to your entrepreneurial path.
Well, what I've learned is that a lot of LOs, and I'm sure you see this in your open rates on your LO Daily Life newsletter, which also
Lending Life.
I read it. Lend Life, I read it every day. So I think the loan officers are paying attention, and when they need to pay attention, like when they're busy, they're not paying attention to anything. So when they're not busy, they might pop their head out of the sand and pay attention. So what I've taken the approach of is like you have to over communicate and consistently communicate all the time. But the other thing you have to do is what I've learned is that at AIM, I got to meet all the lenders, CEOs, all these different lenders, all the people who are running these companies. And I realized really quickly the difference between Matt Ishbia and all the other CEOs I met was that this guy's a freaking unicorn. Okay. Like he's they don't make people like this guy. So for me, it was like, you know what? I realized that they don't make people like me either. And the more visibility I can bring to the way I run my company, the more people are going to be like, holy shit. That's the way this guy runs his company. That's the level of transparency, accountability. That's how visible he is to every team member. That's how involved he is in every process. And for me, it's been, the replacement for having a big recruiting apparatus is like, we're attracting the people. We get 150 to 200 LOs on our recruiting call every week. We don't hire them all. That's not our model. But, to me, it's like, I'm attracting the audience versus going out and trying to find them.
Yeah. Anytime you attract a big audience, you attract the positive and the negative.
Yes.
How do you approach the negative? And like you got some haters out there. You got people who go for the jugular, Anthony, but you also know how to go through for the jugular. So like, how do you approach the bad?
Well, I think for me, it's this. It's like the Patriots for years. Like everybody like this, the cheating gate and all these different things. At the end of the day, they just won. And at the end of the day in this business, if you can just win, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And like for me, it's like my track record matters. It's like, what has this guy done? Okay, he's had 4 exits, and he's got a leading technology company that he was part of. He's both mortgage companies he was part of are leading companies that are still doing really well. He's got an association that didn't exist that now is a leading association. Like track record matters. So like I'm just going to focus on building a winning organization with a winning culture with the highest retention ever. And they're only going to keep coming after you. Like if I would imagine Rocket would say, they have 1 million people that talk crap about them, and UWM's got 1 million people that talk bad about them. But guess what? They're both winning.
They're both being talked about. And that's attention is attention is part of the game. So like as you've evolved as a leader in the mortgage industry, and now you're at a place where you're leading. How many originators do you have at UMortgage now?
So we at the end of this month, at the end of December, we'll be at just over 300.
Okay, just over 300 people are like depending on you for their livelihood and to serve the realtors that they've built, probably in many cases decades building relationships with. How does that change the way that you want to communicate or be present in the industry? Or like how do you think about how you evolve as a leader as you evolve in scale and impact?
Well, we have 300 originators and then 200 other team members. We have 500 total team members.
Wow.
It's changed the way I communicate completely. So like, to me at this point, what I've learned is that while being provocative and having bravado and all that stuff is like will attract an audience, there's a lot of people that don't want, while they'll watch, and like a lot of people like the spectacle of it and they like the confrontation, they're not going to go work for that. Like they don't want to be employed by that. So I've learned that, at the end of the day, I'm just going to focus on truly who we are, not try to, run a customer acquisition strategy to get attention, but just focus on who we are. Luckily, the audience has stayed with me. So it's not like I'm no longer giving them red meat. I'm just focused on us as a business and speaking transparently about the business. And they've stayed along for the ride.
Well, and some of those audience members are team members now. So like we just saw an announcement, I think it was last week, where a gentleman that's been prolific in the housing or in the mortgage brokerage industry as a top originator in Arizona, Todd Bitter. Tell us about how that relationship with Todd has evolved over the years and what he's doing with you now at UMortgage.
Yeah, Todd's a little bit of a broker legend, and you've been part of AIM and watching everything for years. So he's the ultimate do-it-yourself guy. Never had employees, processed 30 loans a month, did it all himself, and all brokers love this guy. Todd and I have an amazing.
But he works like 20-hour days, right? The man is like grinder.
He's a grinder. So we talked about it for a while. He said, Anthony, he's like, if you can process loans as good as I process loans, and do it at a cheap enough margin that the difference between you and me just being my own broker owner makes sense, I'll call me. And we've stayed in touch over the last 2 years as we built the platform. And he saw, not the NPS is the best, the closing, the application clear to close is best. And then he called me and said, Anthony, I want to come over, but I want to come over and help your salespeople be better salespeople. And, I told him, I was like, well, we're really not trying to be a retail lender with like the sales leadership structure. He's like, no, my focus is coaching, mentoring. I'm at a point in my career where I'm not trying to, be the override or like that kind of person. And we talked over the last couple of months, and we finally hit a point where, he pulled the trigger and he came on board, and he believes that this is the platform that replaces, a lot of platforms out there. And he's another person that's coming in with a vision of bringing the next generation of LOs into our industry. Just playing one thing, I don't know if Graham or Garth mentioned this to you, but like the average age of the LO is like north of 55 right now. When I hear that, that's there. I mean, we had an issue with appraisers these last couple of years. Nobody could get an appraiser done because these guys were, aging out of the system. We're about to have that in the mortgage industry.
Yeah, I mean, at least the mortgage industry is doing slightly better at recruiting the next generation of talent than the appraisal space. But I mean, there's some natural barriers there, and like the appraisal space is kind of, some people agree with me on this, some don't, but plagued by the model of needing to be an apprentice for a certain amount of time. Where, again, for better or for worse, you can get into mortgage origination pretty quickly.
Yes, absolutely. But the issue is like the cycles wear a lot of people out, and they leave.
So do you think, like, talking about the next generation of talent, like, do you see bringing new first time originators into UMortgage as part of the model, or are you looking for experienced talent in your recruiting effort?
That's the vision. So the vision is like, we're looking at and saying, the guy that's looking to retire, what's his retirement plan? What's his way to get out? Your dad, I've talked to your dad before. How does he exit? How does he turn the cash register off? Well, if he turns it off, it just is off and that's it. But if he's got years of relationships, our goal is to sit here and bring, the LO to the apprentice that you talked about, and marry him to, the retiring LO and say, hey, listen, this is your mentor. You're going to do it exactly the way you want to do it. You're going to take over the relationships. He's going to work with you to do that. And he's going to get paid off of the business for X amount of years. But now, instead of you coming to the business and trying to like work really hard to get to 20 million, which is a big number for a lot of guys, you're taking over his book, getting 20 million at the gate. So now you have a foundation. So you overcome the barrier to entry. But not only that, you're serving a purpose. You're learning the nuance and the industry knowledge that really is tribal knowledge. Your dad has it here. How do you get it into this new person's mind? Well, they learn by being mentored by them. So that's really the big picture vision.
For the audience members who don't know, I grew up around this stuff. My dad's been an originator for 35 years. I've seen him in his capacity at community banks and large IMBs, and as a mortgage broker, and with a small IMB most recently. And it's kind of fascinating to learn as a growing up and before my capacity at HW. So been around this industry for quite a while in one way or another.
You want to hear the funny thing is the same LOS he was using 35 years ago is the same LOS he's using today, which is scary that we don't use it, by the way.
Correct. So Anthony, I opened the episode noticing that you have an outline of Texas and fluorescent lights behind you that says home. I don't think you're in Pennsylvania right now. What are you doing in Texas?
Well, we are very excited. We're in the process of we just finalized the acquisition of a really special company here in Texas, in Dallas, in Coppell, and NXT Mortgage. It's one of the fastest growing companies in the country. It's been on the Inc. 500 list. Is it 5,000 or 500?
I think it's Inc. 5,000, but yeah, Inc. 5,000 is the official Inc. name.
Got it. They've been on the fastest growing list the last couple of years. Really special company, great culture, very aligned with our culture. special entrepreneur that runs this company. His name's Tyler Hodgson, former Marine, a CPA. Like, this is a unicorn. And I've had a great relationship with him through AIM. I helped, I was part of him starting his brokerage, this company 4 years ago. So it's really come full circle. And he's the kind of guy that I see, not just bringing his company to UMortgage, we're acquiring them in this transaction, but I see him potentially one day being, the CEO of the company. He's got that potential.
So maybe there's a better question for Tyler, but I'll let you answer. Like, what do you think? What attracted Tyler to UMortgage? Like, outside of the history that the two of you have, like, why did he choose you versus staying independent or joining, a different shop?
Yeah, he in just 4 years, he built the biggest broker in Texas. He's one of the biggest ones in the country. He has 50 plus LOs. I think it really came down to, like, do you want to spend, do you want to try to, just be another mortgage company and do it yourself? Or do you want to come together with a group of entrepreneurs, because it's not just him, that are all focused on building something really, really special? And I think, from an alignment standpoint, he wants to build something special. We think the industry deserves it. And we think the time has come for somebody to think really, really big and change the model, just change the entire ecosystem. And, this is an industry that people have been talking about disruption for a long time. Clayton, like, I've been hearing it forever. And I don't think it's coming via consumer experience. I don't think it's coming through a consumer direct thing that, like, everybody thought like that's what it was going to be. I think it's coming in the form of the way loan originators perform and fulfill their loans and place their loans and that entire situation. And that's our vision. That's what we want to do. Is we want to really change the game from that perspective. So that's what I know he would say if he was on here.
All right, nice. So for NXT, like, what changes post acquisition? Like, is there tech stack change, brand, marketing? Like, how does Tyler's life change after this deal?
So number one, his LOs process their own loans. So we talked about Todd Bitter, like in the broker channel, there's no operations, so they process it themselves. So number one, that they get that pickup. Tyler is no longer doing administrative stuff like payroll and all this, the compliance. He's now just focused on growing the business and helping UMortgage grow the business as a whole. So, to me, it's going from, like, being a LO / business owner and operations person all in one to just solely focused on client acquisition and customer and relationship development. And that's, for the LOs that have come here, because of that change of behavior, they're growing in a shrinking market where most people, are sitting there not in that situation.
That's pretty good for Tyler. So have you had any LO, you have a unique culture and unique strategy you're running. Have you had any LOs that joined and realized, like, hey, this isn't a fit. I don't want to process my own loans? Or, like, I know we all take a lot of swings. We don't always bat 100. So, like, what hasn't worked?
We've struck out. Here's where we struck out. And I hate to ever say an age thing, but the LO that's been in the mortgage business for a long, your dad, we've struck out with that audience.
And I feel bad for my dad. He's becoming like the topic of this podcast. Like, let's use a different example for a minute.
He's 35 years.
The man's got an origination business to run.
Exactly. So that audience has struggled with us because we're so tech driven, and we basically, our internal culture is essentially like Facebook for a company. So at any given time, and sometimes it gives me anxiety because at any given time, like, an LO would be like, hey, let's price a loan and compare, our pricing. There's such transparency and visibility that, like, at the end of the day, there's nothing preventing them from just saying, well, why do I need UMortgage? But we think the community is the glue. We think that's actually the stickiest thing. Like, we look at it like Peloton. It's like, we're building a community that gives these guys the best resources and the best operations. But at the same time, that allows us not to have all the support that normally would support, like, distributed retail. Like, it's like they support each other and they understand that that's the way that this thing's being built. So there's good and there's bad with it. But for the audience that's used to being in their own little world, doing their own thing, this is a lot. They get into our mind and they're like, whoa, you guys are really, like, all over it.
So I imagine you're figuring out, like, how to screen in the recruiting process for the type of originator that you want to help build, and also the type of originator who's going to fit in culturally and not come in with shock out the gate.
Yeah, and that's part of what Todd Bitter's coming here for. Is, Todd's been in the business for a couple decades now, and he's really able to kind of sit there and say, hey, you got this very modern social media focused, the modern LO, I would call them. That's the core of UMortgage. Yep. well, let's help, bring in this audience that we look at, potentially shifting their business to the modern LO with a legacy plan.
So we're in a market right now with, from our Altos data, 550,000 active listings, which is like 59% less than the same point last year, but 36% higher than 2019. So like we're operating in this funny market that's like historically all right, but like down really significantly off these highs we saw in 2020 and 2021. How are you helping originators like this next gen LO who may have started in the industry in 2019 or 2020 adapt to the market that they need to operate in Q4 2022 and however long you want to prepare them for in 2023?
I'm not letting them think. So like that's the biggest thing is like I suffocate them with communication. Like if you see me a lot externally, you can only imagine what these guys see. Because I'm on them so much.
What's your platform? Like, is it video all day inside or Slack, or like how do you what's your national reach model?
So there's two. Workplace is Facebook's business platform. So we have that, and that's kind of like Facebook for our company. So everybody lives in there. It's like high velocity Facebook, and then obviously Loom emails and text messages that we have going out to everybody. But the whole thing is this: it's so easy to go negative right now. It is so easy. There's so many things that if you're a realtor or loan officer, it's easy to like get off track. And to me, it's just like I show them through my activities. I say, hey guys, I'm doing what you need to do with realtors. I'm doing with loan officers. You see me, I'm recruiting all day long. I'm on calls. Like I show them the activities. I show them the text messages. I show them everything and say, this is how you apply it to what you're doing. And because of the success that they've seen, they've done that. And to me, it's super fundamental based, but it's leadership. It's like at the end of the day, it's like these sales guys. If you were to survey 100 sales guys, anybody that's listening as a loan officer or branch leader, it's like how often are you talking to your LOs? And if the answer is anything less than like 10 times a day, it's not enough. Like to me, it's like I know how easy it is. But like think about these guys. Like it's 2:00 in the afternoon. I just had a bad call. I'm just going to shut it down for the day. There's nobody managing it. Your employees, if they shut it down 2:00, they're going to hear from HR. These guys, they're their own boss. So like for me, it's important that I'm giving them that extra nudge. I'm sending them that message at 2:00 to say, hey guys, like it's halftime. We got to go out there and work harder right now. So I'm just suffocating them with communication because the minute they have time to think is when they'll think about the negative or the market shrinking or rates stinking.
I guarantee you, if we did a survey of origination leaders across the country, nobody would say that 10 times a day is like their current communication cadence. Honestly, 10 times a day scares me. I would feel as a leader, I would feel like I was like distracting my team at that level. Like do you think
they're only going to watch one? Like the thing is this: it's like I could send it to them 10 times. But I'll be lucky if they watch one. Matter of fact, the funny thing is what I've learned is like they might turn off the notifications for the internal platform, but they'll watch my stuff on social media.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's like I just want to get in. I just want to me, it's like I like the idea that a loan originator is gonna like open every email, like that's insane thinking. Like I just want to suffocate them, and hopefully one of the messages got through and that motivated them or gave them some direction for the day.
I'm curious if after this episode drops, you're going to get feedback like, Anthony, the word suffocate. But I guess that's the culture you're recruiting for, right? Like you have to you recruit people who can keep up with the speed and the communication cadence and match it.
Yes. And this goes for both environments. Like right now, this is a tough environment. So the more activities you do, you'll get that extra loan a month. In a good environment where it's easy to make money, these guys are also shutting it down early too, because like it's easier to make the money. They don't have to work as hard. So to me, it's a standard and a precedent. Again, this goes back to observing a UWM or a Matt Ishbia. You hear UWM becomes number one. What do you hear? He says not done yet. Like it's a mindset of just saying like, hey guys, like why stop? Like we got to keep going. If you have 5 realtors, how do we get to 6? And in this industry, because it's so easy to make money. People have low standards. Like 3 loans a month is a superstar in this business because that's $250,000 a year in income if you're an LO. So, to me, I'm trying to get them to, think bigger.
Yeah. I don't know if it's if 3 loans a month is $250,000 at certain spreads and override levels, but maybe in the right shop. So Anthony, I know that like we just talked about NXT. I know you've been active in looking at other recruiting and acquisition opportunities. How are you thinking about the M&A environment in the mortgage industry right now? We saw again today on today's webinar that we hosted with SnapDocs, Garth Graham shared that there's been 50 IMB M&A transactions in 2022, and we expect to see that accelerate in 2023. Wow. What are you seeing in market and like deals that are marketed, deals that you're finding on the proprietary side, the relationship? Like, how do you kind of evaluate this market from a M&A perspective?
Well, number one, the only thing that's like to me at the end of the day, you got to bet on the entrepreneur. So if you're buying a company based upon the production, hey, I'm buying this company that's $10 billion in volume. If those LOs are not loyal to whoever that leader is that you're buying into, it doesn't matter. We just saw it with Mortgage Network. Movement bought them, and 70% of the LOs went over to cross country. So it's like, what'd you buy? Like, if at the end of the day, if the LOs didn't come, they're not yours. So, to me, it's like you got to bet on the entrepreneur, make sure that they're sticky. And then the other thing is like, you got to understand it's very hard to integrate cultures and technology. So if you don't have a plan for that, like New Res and Caliber basically never integrated. Like they essentially, like they were supposed to merge into the Caliber platform. They tried that. It didn't work. So they just went back to the New Res platform. So like it's not something you can do without a plan. I would say the other thing is this is, in this environment, legacy, when you buy these companies, they all have legacy deals and policies and all that stuff. And that's hard to overcome. I think one of the reasons why we've been so successful is we haven't had to overcome any old processes or, Underwriter been here for 20 years as an old mindset that, you can't overcome. It's like, what's your plan to overcome those things would be a big thing. So to me, small entrepreneur driven companies are my strategy.
All right, Anthony, as we wrap things up, there's a question I've asked a lot of guests this year. I think it's incredibly important in 2022 is what's one thing that you've changed your mind on this year? You came into 2022 with a set of beliefs. Like what's one thing that's changed for you and you feel differently as we approach 2023?
I've changed my mindset that the market in any way, shape, or form matters. And like to me, like at the beginning of the year, like I would say, I was coming in the year and saying the market matters so much. It's such, like you have to be cognizant that you can scale down, scale up. What I've learned is that actually doesn't matter if you are solely focused on customer acquisition. If your whole business model has your salespeople focused on customer acquisition, you can grow. And in this world, our customer acquisition for us, our customers LOs. So like everything is recruiting, everything is getting LOs to recruit. And then getting them to recruit agents. So to me, it's just making sure your business plan's focused on the right thing. I would ask you this, Clayton, when you talk to people and you ask the CEO like who their customer is, I'd be really interested in seeing what they say. Because in our world, if you were to go to every department in the company, they would all say the loan originator.
Yeah, I think it's different across organizations. I think there's a good set of leaders in the mortgage industry that know the LO is the client, and those are probably the market share leaders. And yeah, it's certainly not uniform across the industry. I think that's a really good point.
Let me flip this on you. What would you say you changed this year?
I literally just had a call with our sales team 30 minutes ago where I talked about we will not let the market dictate our success and our growth. Like that was the point you just made was literally something I spent this afternoon talking about. I think it's really important to understand the market and understand like where the headwinds are and where the tailwinds are and pick the fights you want to pick and pick the parts of your ideal client profile that are most important to concentrate on and align with the areas of growth and opportunity. But like you don't run scared. You don't put your head in the sand. Like that's not being an entrepreneur. Like I don't know what that is. It's being wimpy.
Well, that's exactly right. And I would say like going back to this whole concept of selling the company, selling the equity of the company to our team members. When somebody strokes that check, they're betting not only on you, but like they become an owner. Yeah. Like right now, I'm at this grand opening for NXT. We got 3 of our branch managers here that flew from all over the country. A year ago, when they weren't owners, they wouldn't have done that. But now it's like, this is ours. So I love that message. That is the right message.
Awesome. Anthony, thank you for joining me for this episode of Housing News. Congratulations on your new Chief Sales Officer and Todd and the NXT acquisition. And send Tyler my best.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And HousingWire audience, make sure you're tuning in this every week. This is a must listen.